last one at the Vancouver residency, so don't get used to this fucking view.
Yeah, it's
back
gonna
to the
change.
concrete wall pretty
It's
quick.
gonna change back to the concrete wall.
Being the last one, we wanted to make sure we went out with a bang, so we got our brother here, Gary St. Lion Mangat, with us. How you doing, man?
It's nice to be here, man.
Yeah,
It's a
thanks,
beautiful
man.
view, man.
Thank you.
Love
Man.
this area.
We've known each other for a little while now, which is something I say about everybody. I gotta figure some shit out. But we've had the blessing of being able to work with you a little bit, and gotten to know you over the years. Sponsored one of your fights. You're a real pillar in the community when it comes to having a message and all that stuff. So it was only right that we had you on the podcast.
Yeah,
so
for
thank
sure.
you for being here.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, you had a recent. Was there a fight this year? Yeah, you came off of.
Yeah, in May in Singapore.
So that was a COVID fight, essentially, right?
That was a crazy situation. That was an empty indoor stadium that usually holds 18,000 people.
Right.
And
So
just
that was the first time you're in a big fight, no fans.
Yeah, and like I don't know when it's gonna go back to normal, but that was a different situation than what I'm used to.
Right.
Just the whole situation in Singapore was different from the time that you land there to the time that you leave. Like everyone's in hazmat suits all over Singapore.
Oh, shit.
And they literally have, like, the second you get off the plane, they have tunnels that lead you through the airport, and you go through testing. You're literally in a single file line from the time you leave the plane to the time you get in your vehicle. And in the vehicle, they're in hazmat suits. They take you to the hotel. They take all your bags out. They spray everything down. They spray you down. Then they got to clear everybody out of the hallways, and then you're supposed to go up to your room by yourself. And even the corner that you came with, your coach you came with, you're separated. You're in separate rooms.
Oh, wow.
And then they lock you in your room for 72 hours. They take your hotel key away. They test you, and then you're locked in the hotel.
Crazy.
And you can't leave till your test comes. And even when your test comes back, you can only see the person that you came with. So my coach. But you can't walk around the hotel at all. I couldn't leave. So my dream was to go see Singapore. I saw Singapore as much as you could pull it up on your phone right now. Is what I saw from my hotel room. Wasn't able to leave at all. Even the fight day, they took us, same situation. Only one fight happens in the arena at a time. Only 2 fighters in the entire stadium at a time.
What?
Completely empty. And they don't bring in the other 2 fighters till you get back in your van and you've gone through your medicals and you've been shipped back to your... It was such a crazy situation. And then you go out there and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
You can hear everything.
Right. So
and
did it feel like more of a sparring match for you than anything?
It did. It was
how
weird.
did you channel energy?
Yeah, like, so you're zoned in, you're going there for a fight, and then you're being treated like you're in a horror movie.
It literally is.
How does that fuck with you?
It actually didn't. It was weird. I know that some people thrive off the crowd and stuff, and I do too. But we made sure the last 6 weeks of my training camp, my sparring days were when the gym were empty. Because sparring, when it happens in Vegas, it happens around 3:30, and there's 70 pro fighters in there. It's loud, and there's coaches going, there's bells going. So I had to get out of that situation. So I used to come in earlier and the gym be empty, and it'd be just me and my sparring partners and be dead quiet. So I got used to it.
Right.
And also for me, once I'm in the cage, I black out.
Yeah,
I zone out.
Yeah.
So I don't see really anything anyways.
The lion's gotta eat.
Exactly. So I'm in there. I'm in there with one mission. And if you watch me walk out, like, when I look back on it, I think it was the most focused I've been. And like, if you see the way I walk out, it's different. I'm there with a mission. And I remember just being backstage before my music came on. I was in a different zone. And I was just like, there's no distractions. I'm just going to go out there and eat. And that's it. And that's all I did.
Nice.
But there was even situations leading up to the fight. A lot of people thought the guy that I fought was a guy I was supposed to fight. What happened was my opponent that I trained 8 weeks for tested positive 2 days before the fight.
Fuck.
So my fight was basically, it was canceled, and they're like, you're not going to get paid, you're going to get sent back. They're like, or you can take a fight with a guy who is a hot up-and-coming like prospect who lives here in Singapore. He's ready to go. He's from a weight class above you. He's not going to be able to make your weight. And I was already on weight. Because I took business class, and it was like, you want to enjoy business class.
Yeah,
they give you this big platter of food and everything.
Yeah.
And so I took a picture with it, and the guy's like, are you going to eat it? I'm like, no, you can take it back now. I can't have none of this.
Little did you know.
Little did I know I could have ate the whole thing, and I could have still made weight. I actually came in underweight.
Man.
And so it was all these situations.
But hold on, so you came in underweight. You fight flyweight?
Yeah.
At 135?
Yeah. And so as soon as I found that out that I was going to have to move up weight, I just kind of started eating whatever I could. But it was just situations like this. And if you get COVID in Singapore, it's like you've killed somebody. It's like you're going to jail for murder.
Oh, shit.
It is the scariest thing to get in that kind of place, because they have special, like, solitary, like almost jail-like camp setup for people that are positive. So they were testing us every second day at the hotel.
So you're worried, fucking boy, hopefully I don't test positive and.
Well, that's what happened. So like my opponent that I was supposed to fight, he passed the first 2 tests that we were there. Oh shit! It's a 3rd test.
But how do they know if that's a false positive? They don't care.
They don't know. So it happened with 3-4 guys who got, and then you got 5 hours. They take you out of the hotel. Then they take you to this place, and you don't leave for 14 days, and you don't hear from them again for like until they get to leave. And I saw the setup, man. It was like a room full of about 15 cots, and that's your setup.
Crazy.
And you're just with these random people.
Yeah.
And it was just like there was a lot of anxiety about that situation because you're just like, dude, if like something comes up, because over there even antibodies get tested positive. We have a certain threshold where it's like, if you're this much, you test positive. If you're this much, you're okay. Theirs is lower. Their bar is lower.
So they're false positive.
It takes a lot less to test positive.
You had COVID.
I'd had COVID. So this guy that I was supposed to fight before he got replaced in October, I ended up testing positive 24 hours before I got on the flight from Las Vegas to Singapore. Crazy. So I got lucky in that sense in a way, because it would suck to have got to Singapore and ended up in that situation. So I would just quarantine in Vegas. I was stuck for 14 days. Now he tested positive. So this fight got rescheduled twice. Now we'll see if it happens a 3rd time or not, or if we're just kind of cursed not to fight each other.
So as if the fight game wasn't crazy enough, this happens. This leads me to a bigger question. Why the fuck do you do this? Like, what? Man. You're a smart guy. You're
intelligent guy.
Not smart enough, I guess. But I keep putting myself.
Or too smart. What do you know that we don't know?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Not smart enough because I keep dragging myself into these situations and I just keep doing it. It was weird. Like last year, me and my wife, we built a brand new house. We settled in. So I literally sat in the house for 4 days. I'm like, I'm gonna get comfortable here. It literally started messing with me. So I was in Vegas training just to kind of improve when I'm not in a camp, and then I had to come back here, and we moved within 4 days into our new house. And then I'm sitting there and I'm just I'm sleeping in, and I feel like I'm on a vacation. I'm like, and after the 4th day, I'm like, dude, I'm wasting away. As soon as I get that feeling, it starts messing with me. I'm like, I'm wasting my days. I'm sleeping. I feel like I'm on vacation. We're just lounging. And I'm like, I need to get out of here. Within 4 days, I'm moving into our new house. I left.
Oh shit!
I went right back to Vegas. Right. With the fight, I signed the contract. I'm like, and I put myself right back in that crazy situation of training with the craziest dudes. And I was just like, I had to find something of why I wanted to do it. And I was like, to represent, man. At the end of the day, that's really, I don't need the money. I don't need to do it. And I had always been saying that, but I don't think my circle really believed it. They're like, dude, you're being paid more because you're in one now and stuff. I'm like, guys, I'm telling you, I'm not doing it for the money. Right. It never was about the money for me. And now that I'm in a situation where I don't need the money, now they're like, holy shit, you actually did sign the contract and win. I'm like, guys, I always told you this.
That's crazy.
I always told you it was never about the money. It was about, especially this last card, it was such an Indian-based card. It was really cool.
And I didn't even going on.
And I didn't even know that it had that theme. Yeah. I actually didn't even know until a day before they came out with the poster.
Crazy.
I'm like,
don't go.
Oh, what? Yeah, I'm like, that's dope, because I always watched the movie too. On the week of my fight, I always, and then Ritu was on there. Was one of the sisters, and she was on the card, and it was just cool. And I was just like, it just everything kind of aligns itself, right? Crazy. And then when I got home, I enjoyed my house more, right? Because now I'm like, I accomplished something. And now we're going back into that where it starts eating at me, and I go through these cycles, and I think that's why fighters they never fully retire. Right. When they're like, oh, I'm going to hang out my gloves, and you always hear about somebody
Randy
coming
Couture
back 10 years.
Back.
Randy Couture or a Vitor Belfort. He's fighting Oscar in boxing. They never, it's hard to walk away from the game. Right. Because you always have this goal, and you're always chasing something.
Crazy.
So I wait for that to reset on me. Yeah. And then once that resets and I feel that fire to get back at it, because to go through training camps, it's hard. Yeah. The fight's the easy part. Getting to that 8-week camp and somehow just picking yourself up session after session, 3 sessions a day, the next day, you gotta have something strong that you're holding on to that's gonna push you through that camp. Right. Especially in places that I train, like in Las Vegas, it's crazy. You get injured every single day, and you gotta keep going. You gotta keep going. Yeah. And just you have to have a strong belief in what you're doing out there.
It's wild, because I'm trying to figure out how you've done very well for yourself, specifically in the last year, and now you're comfortable, life's good, you married the love of your life, and I'm trying like, what do you feel like you're a better fighter than the Gary that was from the struggle, or like where?
Are you
and is Vegas the escape for you to go and get back on the grind, and is it hard to do it at home?
You don't think you're gonna become Connor, are you?
No, look. So it's like weird. So like me and my wife had this conversation, and because I told her last time, so we get really deep about the meaning of all my fights. Like sometimes we get a bit too deep about it. Then like I know some fighters just sign the contract and they go and have fun.
Yeah.
I don't understand that concept. I don't understand how you can have fun fighting. To me, it's never been fun. It's like scary as hell on the fight day.
Yeah.
You're full of anxiety. You literally question why you ever put yourself in the situation.
Right.
But in the last one, I was like, you know what? Let me just have fun with this. Like I don't know how many more years I have. I'm like I was that same kid that fought at Capilano College on a pancreation tournament where I had to pay $60 to fight. And I thought when I would have one amateur fight in Washington on like a native reservation that was like my UFC moment.
Yeah.
Like nobody knew what I was doing. I'm like, dude, now I've made it to the biggest organization. Like, why don't I have fun with this?
Right.
Like I think majority of the people that knew me from the first day I started this never thought I would even get to this point.
Right.
That I was all going to be talked, that none of this shit was really going to happen.
Yeah.
Kid just keeps talking this shit. Like, you know.
Yeah.
And now that I've done it, it's like, why don't I just have fun with it?
Right.
Like, and she's like, that's so interesting that like you put it that way because she's like, I never thought about it like that. She's like, we always put such a deep thing to it, like we make the moment so heavy,
right?
And that's why you're just like, holy crap, like instead of just like sparring, I'm dancing, I'm moving around, I have fun, I get punched in the face, I smile, I bleed, I get happy about it. But in the actual fight in the cage, it's like you're so tense because you're like, you don't want to make that misstep. So in this last fight, I just went out and had fun. And I was moving and I was dancing and I was having fun. And that's really what it was. And I think I won't lose the hunger because I'm always chasing the next thing for myself.
Right.
And for me, I never settled. Like when I got kind of like better in a financial situation, I still wake up the same way every day. Like I have $5 in my pocket. Yeah. Because I felt that when I was in Montreal, I went broke. I had nothing. I was absolutely at the bottom. And I always remind myself of that. I try not to manifest it back, but I always remind myself that we're not going back there.
Crazy.
I'm not going back to that shit again. And that's what wakes me up every day. Always doing the same formula over and over and over and over.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Exactly.
Right?
So exactly.
It seems like a lot of the stuff you learned from your training camps and stuff like that, you've kind of applied to other parts of your life, like investing and stuff like that. And that seems like it's a new grown passion for you as well.
Yeah. So it's weird. So like a lot of people know that I was doing accounting before I became a mixed martial artist. Yeah. So everyone's like, oh, you went back to your accounting financial stuff. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, I use zero of my education from finances in learning the market. Every lesson I learned to become a good trader was from the maths of MMA.
Crazy.
How not to panic under pressure.
Right.
How not to get too high on a situation. How not to get too low in a situation.
Right.
How to be stone cold and cerebral about trades and being really quick and reactive. How to just kind of learn something inside out, the grind of it, just learning the meticulous details of something, right? Just learning the perfect details of stuff. Always trying to learn something like the best.
Right.
So I wanted to trade as good as the guys on Wall Street do.
Right.
So I wanted to learn, what do hedge funds do? What do they do? How do they bring in the billions? I wanted to be that small guy who function like them.
Right.
So I can see a trade off, like everyone thinks it's going to go up. No, I guarantee it's going to go down. And most of the time I'm right because I try to think that one step ahead, which is exactly what MMA taught me. You always got to evolve as a mixed martial artist. You look at what UFC and MMA was in 1992. It's not the same game. Fighters are way more well-rounded. And the game I can't even imagine what fighters are going to be like 10 years from now. Because now it's not about boxing versus wrestling or wrestling versus kickboxing. Everybody knows the same thing. It comes down to a very fine detail of who has the better conditioning, who has the better reaction time and stuff like that. And that's something I brought from MMA into the market.
Right.
And so even in my last fight camp, I was doing them both at the same time.
Oh, shit.
And usually I burn out during my training camps because you're thinking about your opponent all day.
Yeah.
You're thinking about what your opponent's doing. You're thinking if you're doing enough. But it always gave me a break. And then MMA was my break from the market.
Crazy.
So I never got burnt out because I was always switching my brain every couple hours for 8 weeks straight. Crazy. And so I would when I was on the mat, I never thought about my stocks.
Right.
But when I would get off the mat, I go right back to stocks and not think about training.
Do you have a mechanism? Like, I know you have the on-off switch, but like when I think about shit, I'm thinking about everything, and I'm thinking about the worst case scenario. I go that way sometimes. What is it about you? It seems like somewhere in your life a switch flipped, and you were hyper in tune to everything. Now, is that an over time thing? Was that a specific experience you had, or like what's the deal with that?
Like just kind of getting focused on things?
Yeah, like you have this thing where you're just boom and you're all in right off the bat.
It's weird because up until 2020, I was all MMA.
Right.
So everything, every thought, every time I'm just sitting watching TV, I'm thinking about some like fight related. But I think one of the greatest skills I learned in 2020 was to compartmentalize my mind.
Right.
Like I could turn it off, move into this, turn it off, move it back into that. It was a skill I kind of built in like last year.
Right.
And it was something fresh.
This is new.
Yeah, because I never had really anything else I was really doing other than MMA always. It was always like, okay, we work on jiu-jitsu today, we work on boxing today, we work on wrestling, those were kind of my things.
Yeah.
But now I was stepping into a completely different world, and I would just turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. So it's kind of a skill that it was. Up until that point, it was just MMA. I could get hyper tuned into it. I was just focused in it. I could I always try to think of the next step.
Right.
And like my wife always calls me out on that. She's like, it's something that I'm always working on. She's like, live in this moment. Yeah. I'm always thinking about the next step. I'm always thinking about the next step. So it's hard for me to just kind of stop sometimes.
It can be beneficial as a trader, but then as a human, it can work against you.
To smell your flowers.
It's beneficial as an MMA fighter. It's beneficial as a trader. And it's like, but it's not beneficial
as a husband.
As a husband.
It's
not beneficial as a husband. It's not.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll be sitting around with my family. She's like, just be here for a second. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I'm trying. Like, I'm just thinking about, okay, Boeing's going to have an earning report next week. Yeah. Okay, we got to get on this. I'm always thinking about the next step and stuff. And then the MMA, okay, if Dustin Poirier moves like this, okay, if I set it up from this. Right. Always think about it. Even on the drive over here, I was just running stuff. I was pulling up earning reports at every red light. Sure. Yeah, I'm like, Amazon reported today, checked, and I'm just like, it's just constant.
Gift and the curse.
It was happening through your vehicle, right? You weren't actually grabbing your phone at a red light.
If the feds are watching, we don't do that. We don't do that here.
We don't do that. We don't. I was at a red light. It wasn't while I was driving. So.
Let's take the story back to your childhood. What kind of got you into this, and what were the motivations? Followed your story. You had a cousin who was into Vitor Belfort, and that was the one way that you could hang out with your cousins. Was you rented those videos and then you hung out with them. Yeah. Your cousin then passed away, and then did that take you away from MMA for a while? And then what brought it back?
Yeah. So like I was never truly interested in MMA when I was a kid. I watched like the old UFCs with my cousins and stuff like that. My dad was really into it, like the old school Vitor Belforts, Tank Abbott's, Ken Shamrocks, all those guys. I was into wrestling, like pro wrestling. Yeah. Like every kid was, right? And that was my thing. But my cousins were obsessed with like Vitor Belfort. And so anytime I would go rent a video and they would sit around with me, and they were much older than me. And they were like, they were bodybuilders, and that time was the pumping iron era, I call it, right? Yeah, like Arnold Schwarzenegger had just come out. Yeah. Everybody wanted to be Arnold and the Hulk and all that stuff. So they were just like, they'd be drinking like 16 raw eggs and stuff like, all that, like all that old school mentality stuff, right? So they'd be doing that, and I'm like, I want to look like you guys. I want to look like Vitor. They're like, do 20 push-ups every night and drink a glass of milk. So every night I used to do it.
So you're learning masculinity essentially from what you thought was masculine.
I guess so. Yeah. And so I would only get to kind of hang out with them when these fights would be on. I would never really be into it, but Vitor was all we watched. And so then he committed suicide, and then it was just like anytime I would see Vitor or Vitor's name, I wouldn't say I had a hate towards Vitor. I just didn't like seeing his face because it was just like...
It's a reminder.
It was a reminder. It had nothing to do with Vitor. And nothing to do with the person that he is. And I started building... Now that when I look back at it, I guess it was depression. I guess it was that when I kind of look back on all of it. But we didn't really know what depression was at that time, right? Nobody was talking about that. Nobody was, and my cousin was depressed, and we didn't know what it was. And that's why he committed suicide. Had depression been like more of a, we knew about mental health and stuff like that, who knows, he might be still here. So from that, it was just I turned it off and never watched it again for years. And then I moved to Vancouver, and that's when I met a group of people that we used to go watch the fights and stuff. I'm like, I used to watch this stuff back in the day and stuff, right?
So how old are you at this point now?
Now I'm 19.
Okay.
I moved to Vancouver now to go to BCIT.
Yeah.
And move up here, and all the guys that I'm hanging out with, they're watching fights every weekend. And now it's like the George St. Pierre era and everything like that. And then I heard about Vitor coming back. He was fighting on another promotion called Affliction. If you guys remember Affliction Clothing, they used to have an MMA league for a very short time. I'm like, man, I used to watch this guy. And then I watched his fight. He knocked this guy out in like a minute or so. Then I started just researching him. I just started looking him up. I was so random. And I came across his video. And it's called I Am Second. And I Am Second is him telling a story of how he found God, how he found Jesus and stuff like that. So I started watching it. And up until this point, I'm holding this kind of resentment and all this kind of stuff. And he started talking about what a lot of people, well, I'm sure if you know about Vitor, his sister got kidnapped in Brazil, like literally a day before one of his fights. Fuck. And then in the favelas, somebody came out with like an 8-track cassette. On every track, they explained what they did to his sister, how they raped her, what they did. And to this day, they've never found her. Fuck. And so he, like, think about him. He's his older brother. And think about the hate.
Fighter,
think about you just looking everywhere and you're just like, oh, I hate the world. Like, you know, how could they do this? Like, you know, he built this hate. And then he's talking about this in the video, and then he starts talking about how he found God and how he learned to let go, and like, you know, how that saved him, and how, like, you know, he's like, he came to terms that his sister is with Jesus, with God, and this and this. I'm just like, how is this guy, like,
you hate this guy?
Yeah, I'm like, how is this guy able to say this? Yeah, like, how is he coming to terms with this? Like,
right.
And then I'm like,
he forgave the people.
He forgave. I'm like, dude, I have to let go of this too. I have to let go of, like, you know, I'm like, I hated my cousin, I hated Vitor or anything. I'm like, what? Like, you left me here, you left me this and this. And then I just let go of it, and it was just like, and that's when I found MMA, like literally right after that. And yeah, and then he was left-handed, he was southpaw, I was southpaw. I won the belt a week before he came back to the UFC. Yeah. And then just like, it was just like this story, and I'm just like, one day I'm gonna meet this guy and I'm gonna thank him. And it was almost like 6-7 years. We would miss each other by a couple of days.
Crazy.
I would go to Montreal, he had just left.
Crazy.
I leave Montreal, he had just arrived.
Crazy.
I'd be in Vegas, I just missed him. But I followed his career for so long. Then I signed to one championship. He signs with one championship. And so I just won my debut, and then they wanted to fly me to Japan for like one of their biggest events. And they were flying me to Japan, and then I find out Vitor's gonna be there. And I'm like geeking out on the plane, like my wife's like, dude, you're like a little kid, cause like I've met a lot of people, I've met the Connors, I've met that. I don't really get that kind of, I don't go crazy over it. Yeah. But I was like, holy shit, like I'm in the plane and stuff. I'm like, what if I meet him? What if I have this conversation? What if I do this? What if I? And I'm just excited as hell. So now the entire weekend goes by, haven't seen him. Crazy. Go downstairs to the hotel, downstairs. Entire restaurant is full. One table next to him and his wife. No way. And I'm like, and John Lee's like, there's the table. I'm like, I'm not going. And I'm like, don't worry, we'll find some other table. I'm like, John Lee's like, are you serious? Like, go, dude. Like, you literally will be sharing a table with them. Yeah. So I'm sitting there, I'm shaking. I'm like, I've never had this happen to me in years. And this is like, I'm 30 years old now. Yeah. I'm just like, I'm shaking. I'm looking at him, like, I'm like geeking at him, right? And then John Lee gets up. She's like, okay, I'm going to go get some more food. He starts getting up. I was like, say something, like, say hi to him. Yeah. And then, like, he kind of just looks at me. He says, hey, how you doing? And I'm just like, hey, how you doing? And he gets up. John Lee's like, dude, tell him. Yeah. So he gets up, and I'm just like, my stomach's in a knot. And I grab him, like, Vitor, can I tell you something? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I literally got like 20 seconds into it, and he's like, hold on. He tells his wife to start recording it. Oh. He doesn't even know what I'm about to tell him, but he knew that something big was going to be told to him. So his wife pulls out the camera, and now I'm even more nervous. I'm like, now I'm on film. Yeah. And I started telling him, and then I'm just like, hey, Vitor, like, you know, like, I've been watching you since like 95 or 96. And I used to watch with my cousin, and he's just like, oh, that's awesome. And then I told him, like, my cousin committed suicide. He's like, oh, what? Yeah. I'm like, I'm like, I'm not here to, like, your fight career is amazing, but your I am second video literally saved my life.
Crazy.
Like, not saved my life as in, like, I was going to kill it, but, like, the direction I was going,
Right.
I would have
Right.
seen life in a
Right.
negative way. You brought me back.
Right.
And you allow me to let go of it. And he's just like, holy crap. He's like, and I'm like, thank you for sharing your pain.
Yeah.
I'm like, because you shared your pain, you healed me.
Crazy.
So then he's like, that's what it is. He's like, that's why I did it. He's like, you have to sometimes share your pain and you can heal others with the pain that you went through. So then we go to Thailand. So we got taken to Thailand. It was a 7-day resort, one championship, paid for it all. So now I got to spend 7 days with this guy.
Right.
So now he's like, you know, my wife's getting close with his wife and this and this and this. And then he's like, we have to tell your story now. I'm like, what? He's like, you have to tell your story now.
Crazy.
Think about who you can heal
Yeah,
now.
bars.
He's like,
Bars.
I'm going to set this up and you and me, and we're going to sit down, we're going to record this. And he's like, you have to tell your story. Just like you say that my pain healed you, you're going to tell your story about, like, you know, depression and suicide and how you can come back from it and how you can, like, you know, how, like, you know, there's something always there. There's a light at the end of the tunnel and stuff.
Crazy.
And he made me do it. And then we filmed it together and then won championship with that video out. And I'm sure you guys seen it.
Came
Me
out
and
really,
me and him
really
walking.
nice.
Yeah, it was
It
crazy
out
when it
really
came
nice.
The universe
Very
is
meaningful.
fucking crazy. Like,
Dude.
you hated this guy. He was a reason for
Yeah.
a big part of your pain.
out. Yeah.
Missed him for 6 years, and
Yeah.
the universe is like, opportunity isn't right yet. And then when it
Exactly.
happened,
Aligned it.
look what it turned
And
into.
it happened in Japan. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it didn't happen here or something, like, and it started in Japan, it ended in Thailand, and now we stay in touch.
Yeah.
We stay in touch, and I'm just like, dude, this is the
Yeah,
phenom I
cheers
talked
to that, man.
Cheers to the
Thank you.
fucking...
Thank you,
man.
boys. Thank you.
Remedy
Yo, man.
kombucha.
Healing, man. That's
Trying to
proof,
get the
is it?
sponsor.
That's fucking proof that brown men can fucking heal. No matter how deep your fucking
true,
pain
bro.
is, no matter how fucking tough your shit is, deal with your shit, own your shit.
Exactly.
It's
And since that time I've come back, I don't know if you guys have, like, it depends on how close, I've spoken about my depression way more openly.
I've seen that. Yeah.
I've spoken about.
You didn't really bring it up at all in your
I
early
didn't.
days.
In
It
my
was
early
just-
days, I never did. No.
No.
And now I'm just like, dude, I'm at a point where I'm married. I'm like, you know, like what, like, it needs to be spoken about. So I started being really out front with it. And I guess it took Vitor to kind of break that wall and be like, listen, man, you like.
He propelled you into something amazing, because even on the last fight that you had when you won, and Roshan was like a mentee to you, and
Yep.
you know you had a lot of, but your speech after the fight, it was very heartfelt for the Kasan and for Khal Saeed, and it seems like you're now starting to, okay, yeah, the money's great, whatever, it's working out, but
Mhm.
you're worried about legacy now, and with what you're gonna leave behind, and not just leave behind, but what your name means, and
Yeah.
who you stood for, what you stand for now instead of your bank account.
It's what I think means anything to me. Like, you know, if you guys know that I didn't come up in sports, I didn't come up any of it. When I had to put down my why of why I wanted to ever leave a comfortable life, and I say this all the time because I get DMs from aspiring fighters from India, from around the world, like, hey, what should I start in? Jiu-jitsu? Is it too late? This, and I'm like, forget that question. Why are you gonna do this?
Yeah.
Why, like, and he's like, and they're always like, what should I start in? I'm like, tell me your why.
Yeah.
Because your why is going to drag you through. You're going to go through the mud, and your why is what's going to. Because
it's going to get tough quick. It gets
It's
tough
gonna
quick.
tough quick.
It gets
Yeah,
fucking tough
yeah.
quick.
the fight game is ruthless. It's beautiful. It's you feel like a rock star when you're walking out and you got fans and everything. But, dude, the stuff that happens behind the scene, it's a rough life. And the why is what's going to get you through it. And my why has never changed since 2007. Like, it has never changed. I had a vision board that I made in 2007. And it's weird because I had one of my cousins from India, and we had like a housewarming at my house, and he's like somebody that I had not met before. But he's like, dude, I've been following you since like he came from India here. He's like, I've been following you since 2008, and he knew so much about me. I'm just like, and he was reminding me of things. He's like, you had a vision board, you had this and this. And I'm like, oh shit, I still have that vision board. So I dug it out from 2008, and we went through it. I'm like, dude, this is everything.
Yeah.
I've literally lived
Took
everything,
it
and I
all
didn't even realize it until
Wow.
he told me to look at him. We just like this happened like 2 weeks ago.
Crazy.
And I was just looking at it, I'm like, holy crap, like everything, the arenas that I fought in, the check that I made out to myself for chasing my dream and not compromising anything.
Right.
One of the biggest things for me was always doing it in the most honest way, staying true to myself and not cheating anybody. That's what, and I think that's a small town thing, maybe, because I've seen like I've seen my dad just work double shifts at the mill my whole life. I've seen my mom work double shifts where she's working, and I still see it. They're still doing the same thing. They're still living Williams like.
You don't change who you are. It doesn't. Your bank account doesn't change.
Exactly. So that like you know, I didn't come from like a dad that passed down a business or something or something like. I'm the one trying to break the barriers for the next generation of my family or my community that listen. There's so many other things that we can go down. Whether it's fighting, whether it's building generational wealth, you can do them both together. So I'm just like I'm learning about myself as I go, but I'm also trying to transcend past all that stuff. Like you know anything that I really kind of saw growing up. Now let's take it to another level. And I think that's one of my biggest motivations is see. For myself, also how far I can push this bar. Yeah. Let's see where we can take this.
That's wild. I'm noticing something about you, and I've noticed this about you leading into fights too. You are who you are. We were talking outside. We've known each other for a little while now. You are who you are, whether there's a mic in front of you, camera, or we're just shooting the shit. And you're a really nice guy. Do you feel like when you're building a fight and stuff like that, does that hurt you being the nice guy? Because like now we're in an era now where if you're not in disdain for the other person, you'd like the Conor McGregor model.
Yeah.
Is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's I don't know. I don't really see much of that in ONE FC. I'm not sure if that's what is passed down. Hey, we're a classier organization. Whereas the UFC now is like, listen, if you're not talking about the other person's wife, kids, and stuff, you're not getting the fight, right? Yeah. Do you feel that hurts you in ONE FC, or is it just a different? No. It's just a different class out there.
I think that's where me and ONE come together well.
Right.
That's one of the things I'm seeing in the UFC now too. It's changing back.
Right.
And I've been waiting for it. That Khabib started it.
Yeah.
Now you got your Dustin Poiriers. Now you got your Francis Ngannou's. You got your Kamaru Usman's. You got one of my main teammates, the Assassin Baby, who just won the flyweight title. So you got I almost feel like the good guys are coming back now.
Right.
And it's kind of like fallen off now, and now you can go back to just being who you are. You don't got to sell it with the press conferences and stuff. Yeah, the North American crowd is sold on like, you know,
sex, drugs, and violence.
Exactly, and like, you know, the trash talking and everything. That's why all these YouTube fights are being so big right now. These YouTube boxers and all this stuff. It's a thing, but none of these things ever last.
It's pendulum, right?
Yeah, it's eventually gonna fizzle out, and then in Asia, it's just such a different crowd, man.
Right.
It's just a different level.
They don't
of respect.
stand for that shit, eh? Yeah.
It's so weird between a win and a loss. They don't treat you any different.
Crazy.
It's so different. Like I've never gone trash talk really from like, you know, over Twitter or somebody blowing up, like, you know, them coming after me. And it just lets me be me and just lets me be who I want to be the way I'm supposed to be. And I don't have to put on an act when I'm in the front of the camera. They don't ask me to be like, hey, like, come on, say something about your opponent. Yeah. If I want to, I can. Yeah. I know some people try to sell the whole that's kind of angle, but if that's who you are, then that's who you are, but it's not me. It
seems like you don't like to fight from a place of hate. Like you have a lot of respect for your opponent, right?
That can only work against you.
Yeah.
When I'm in the cage, I have no hate towards my opponent.
Right.
Yes, I want to destroy him. Yeah. Yes, I want to take out. It's two different things. It's like people always attach fighting with hate. Right. Because that's usually when we watch street fights and stuff.
Right. But this is fight as sport.
This is fight as sport, and
that's different.
True martial artist is always clear-minded, and that's something George St. Pierre taught me when I was in Montreal. And it's a true martial artist. If you want to be, there's a difference between a fighter and a complete martial artist. Complete martial artist also knows how to live his life, how to be good to his friends, his family, his wife, his mother, his father, how to do well for the community, how to be a humanitarian. But that's where the name Saint Lion finds its balance, right? Outside the cage, you're not going to see me looking for fights. Yeah. But once that cage door shuts, I become a lion, and that's all you're going to see. You're not going to see me like, you know, too friendly with the guy across from me. But once that's done, I go right back to who I am.
I was at a seminar in Ontario with Dr. Stuart McGill. Okay. He worked with George St. Pierre. Right. He showed me a signed glove or whatever. Yeah. And he said this one thing to me. He said, you know what makes George St. Pierre and some of the greatest martial artists what they are? It says what? He says they have the best ability to get really quick and tight and like throw that punch with a lot of force, but within a few milliseconds, the body will completely relax right after. Right. So they have, like you said, the Saint line, so the ability to relax, but then this ability to turn it up. Yeah. What are some things that you do in conjunction to fighting that helps you relax as an athlete?
For me, just the meditation and stuff is powerful, man. Like every day I wake up and I'm always harboring two different energies. Like, you know, like everybody has a yin and a yang, but I try to keep them very powerful on both ends. before a fight, I'll be sitting backstage and I'll just go into the meditation. And it was funny that one of my corners, he grabbed a picture last time. It was on my Instagram. I didn't even know he took it. And I was just like, I had literally won the fight about 1,000 times before I went out and won the fight.
Yeah.
And I had already done it. And I like open up. I'm like, holy shit, it hasn't even happened yet. Like I can go into that kind of detail. I can go there.
Yeah.
Like I can go there in such details. I can do the walk. I can do it all. And then I can just let go of it. And I can just be like, okay, all right, okay.
Yeah, you accredited one of your wins to your sports psychologist, and you said that the outcome of that specific was something that you had already done beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit about that, and to athletes that are listening, about the power of mental visualization.
Yeah.
And does it really work?
It does. It's like I started with his Instagram is Fight Mindset, and I started with him when I signed with One Championship.
Okay.
I still have the anxiety and stuff like that. Like I still have that, but it's harbored in a different way. John Jones said that. He said it's okay to have butterflies as long as you can make your butterflies fly in formation, right? So it's like instead of scattering everywhere and stuff like that, you kind of like harbor that. So like if I like when I'm backstage, I'm getting these pulsing
the knots in the stomach,
and I'll just go.
Channel it.
And I'll just harbor. I'm like, I'm gonna need this later, and we're gonna turn this into.
Because a little bit of anxiety is beneficial.
It's a survival mechanism.
I need it.
Anxiety isn't the enemy.
Yeah.
How you use it.
Yes.
If I don't feel it, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm like,
you don't care enough.
Yeah. One of my losses, it was like a little while ago. It was like 2-3 fights ago, or two fights ago. I didn't feel any of it. I didn't feel no anxiety. I was relaxed. I never eat on fight day. I ate a full meal. I was walking around the hotel just chilling, and I lost that fight. And I was just went in there, and I just couldn't get into that. Like, I was like that. I couldn't go into it. I was too relaxed. And the guy took advantage right away. Right. And by the time I hit the cage, I'm like, or I hit the ground, I'm like, holy shit, I'm in a fight. Like, it was just like, so it's like, I want to feel that now.
Yeah.
Usually I'm like, oh man, it's going to suck when I'm sitting in my hotel room 6 days, 5 days, 4 days, and especially this time because usually I can go out into the city that I'm in and kind of kill time, go sightseeing. Yeah. Dude, I'm just sitting in a hotel room. That's why I took my my monitors with me. Yeah. I was trading stocks the entire 6 days there. There's people losing their mind. Like, I made my entire fight purse in the 6 days that I was quarantined in there. While everybody was watching Netflix and killing time and losing their mind, I was trading the entire time, and it was different time zones. So I started trading at 8 p.m. there because
because of the times.
Yeah, because of the time zone. Yeah. And that's why I was doing it. And just for myself, like, I've come to realize that it's good for me to feel that. And one of the best places that I feel it is in Vegas when I'm training. When sometimes I spar here, we kind of go in there, like, it's good training here, but I go in very relaxed. It's almost kind of fun to go into training.
At home.
Yeah, you go in, you talk shit, like, you just kind of talk, you kind of hang out there, you're like, okay, guys, let's get our hands wrapped, let's get these rounds in and go enjoy the day. Dude, when you go to sparring in Vegas, guys show up with their own refs. Guys show up, like, you'll train in the morning with the same guys and you'll come in the afternoon for sparring, and those same guys won't even look you in the eyes. Like, you'll be in the daytime, you guys are talking, you guys are training together, but when it's sparring day and you come, you're just like, everyone has their headphones on, everyone's got their hands wrapped, everyone's eyeing each other. It's a completely different animal when you go to Vegas for sparring day. You got guys that show up with their own refs that are going to start the fight, how the fight's going to start. Crazy. You got, like, Stitch, like, Stitch, the famous... He's there. Yeah. Like, freaking Stitch is there, kind of, like, wrapping hands and stuff. That's crazy. You're just like, this is a different animal now.
Yeah.
And so I feel that same anxiety every single sparring session. So now that's something that, like, as much as the first camp, I was like, man, this sucks. Like, every day I'm not even enjoying this camp. But when I got to the fight, I'm like, I've been here so many times. I felt this. I know how to use it. I've been here.
Is the visualization reducing the anxiety? Because now you've mentally rehearsed it. And then also my next question is do you have a method of this? Like saying, all right, every day for 10 minutes, I'm going to sit on my couch and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to mentally rehearse the match. And then another point that you made was your sports psychologist said, I want you to see it from your perspective. Mm-hmm. Then I want you to pretend to be the cornerman, seeing the arm going up. Then I want you to be the guy in the top, watching your arm coming up and all that. So a little bit about that. Is there a specific method you use?
Yes. So we're always changing it up, but that is one that I like to do on my own.
Okay.
So I'll play an outcome, and I'll play it from 5 different views. So I'll do it from my view, my first person view of me landing a certain combination of me moving around. Then I'll do it from the commentator's view. Then I'll do it where the ref's view. Then I'll do it from the nosebleed view. It's like and I'll play that same situation and I'll take myself there so I look like an ant from the nosebleeds and like I'll see it and it's a powerful thing. Like I've noticed it's a powerful thing, and like I'll play that over and over and over.
And then when the real thing happens, you feel like, hey, I've almost been here before.
Yeah, it's weird because you don't realize it's happened how you said it was gonna happen until you watch it back and you're like, holy crap, I literally had said it like this. Yeah, it's one of the things, like there's a lot of different methods. Like the guy that I work with, he's always trying to evolve me to a different place. And one of the main reasons he works with me is because he's like, you come from a good heart too. Like he works with Rose Namajunas,
which is America's sweetheart.
Yeah. So he works with her and me. So if you guys watched her walk out for her last fight, she's like, I'm the best. I'm the best. Yeah. That's not her just saying I'm the best, like on a kind of a surface level. There's a deep kind of system behind that. Yeah. It was the same thing. I went through the same thing.
Yeah.
It's activating something. Yeah. It's something that we've trained so much. So one of the craziest things that he made me do, and like it was almost like what do you call that? I'm not gonna say it. Yeah, I guess it is almost kind of brainwashing. The ultra.
Are you talking about that hypnosis?
Yeah, like MK Ultra stuff.
Yeah.
It almost reminded me of that because it literally gave me PTSD for like a week after we did this. So what we did was, and I wish I had known we were gonna do it because I would have better prepared myself because I had just come back from sparring. And then I called him. I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the session. Usually what we do is I lie down. He has me on FaceTime. And we go through like a visualization and stuff like that. So I kind of just run through it while he's talking to me. This was different. He wanted me to go in intense detail of how I'm going to finish the fight, like intense detail. And I had to do almost 2.5, 3 hours straight of this.
Wow.
And it's me just constantly saying the same thing over. It's like, I'm going to throw a left punch, I'm going to throw it at, and I have to take the opponent's name, and I'm like, it's going to hit his chin, he's going to fall, the rest's going to come. Like, very intense, like, it was much more detailed, but while I'm doing that, I have these headphones on, he's screaming things, he's saying things, he's saying vulgar things, and I have to stay on that. Anytime I mess up, we start over. Ooh. So, like, you try to even talk to me while I'm screaming back at you, how hard is that to do? Yeah. So I have these Beats by Dre headphones on, intense sound of him just on the other side, and he has this studio where he can pound things so it echoes in my ear, and we did that for 2.5. Dude, I was so mentally drained. And the funniest thing about him is at the end, I'm just like, man, that was the hardest. He's like, what'd you say? I'm like, dude, that was tough, I'm drained. He's like, no, we don't do weakness. Another 30 minutes.
Oh my god.
I had to do it. I was so done.
You think sports psychologist and you're like, this guy's I'm gonna lay down on a couch, talk about my feelings.
But I noticed the next day I just became stone cold after that day. Right. I remember I called my wife, and usually I talk to her 10. I'm like, listen, I have no energy to even ask you about your day right now because I'm in Vegas and she's here. I'm like, I'm going to bed. I just went through some shit that I can't talk about right now. It's hard to talk about. She's like, how was sparring? I'm like, sparring was nothing.
I'm laying in fetal position right now.
I sat on a couch like this on a Zoom call with this guy with the Beats headphones, and that drained me more than going 5 rounds with possibly the next 3 guys that are fighting for the belt. And it was just different,
man. So how far along in the camp is that? Because it doesn't seem like that's something you could do every week.
Yeah, right? It wasn't. I think it was about 5 weeks out we did
5 weeks out, okay.
Right.
And after that, you're different.
You're different, but we're still working on things every single week. Yeah. And then he's kind of seeing what works for me, what doesn't. What we realized was me writing stuff down doesn't work as well for me. It doesn't really, but me visualizing it,
and then saying it out
gets
loud.
Ingrained in me better. So that fight, the one where I lost, was like, the one where I ate and everything. I also did writing for the first time, so we realized that kind of did. So we're kind of like trial and erroring. But one of the things that we work on a lot is, so on the fight, like, I don't even know I'm supposed to be telling his methods and stuff. But the day before the fight, he made me watch. He's like, do you know what a Rolls Royce is? I'm like, of course I know what a Rolls Royce is. He's like, now let me ask you something. If you had a Honda Civic and you souped it up as much as you want, like say you want to do everything, is it stale in comparison to a Rolls Royce, or do you just look at a Rolls Royce and you know what a Rolls Royce is? I'm like, Rolls Royce holds its own class. Yeah. Right? You just know when you're in a Rolls Royce, you're in luxury, right? Right. Doesn't matter what you do to the Honda Civic. You can put Lamborghini doors on it. You can do whatever. He's like, I'm going to tell you now, up until this point, you've been a souped up Honda Civic. Ooh. Right? He's like, now I need you to believe that you're a Rolls Royce. And he's like, And he's like, up until this point, and like, you know, we're going through, like, you know, we're talking about me going through depression. We're talking about all that. He's like, you gotta let go of that shit now.
Yeah.
He's like, you're done with that.
That's past.
That's done,
Yeah.
right? We're not gonna use that sulky story. We're not gonna do that. You're
Wow.
gonna be a Rolls Royce now. Rolls Royce doesn't tell how they came up. Rolls Royce doesn't tell how they had their tough days of when their cars weren't selling. They just know their class, and when you look at one, you just only look forward.
Right.
He's like, now you will only look forward. Whenever you do anything, you will only look forward. He's like, you don't look back. He's like, okay, say you lose your next fight. Where are we headed? I guess not too far. He's like, no, we're still going to the belt. He's like, that's just where we're going. He's like, that's where we're going. You've made that commitment to yourself. Regardless of what's gonna happen from now to then, we're going to the belt.
Right.
That's where you're getting. That's what you're getting. But you have to talk to yourself in a different way. You gotta look at it. You gotta be there already. You've already won the belt. Believe it. You gotta be there. You're not gonna look back and be like, oh, since 2007, I came from this. I made it here. Like, you know, kind of like when I'm telling my story, right?
Yeah.
It's like, he's like, you don't do that. Like, you're not gonna, like, obviously when we're doing podcasts, we talk about it, but he's like, but when you're by yourself, you're not gonna pump yourself up by what you've done.
No.
It's what you're still gonna do.
Yeah.
And you gotta start thinking like that all the time. You have to think like that. Like, we're gonna drop all that shit now.
Right.
You're not that depressed kid. You're not that broke kid. You're not that kid. You know, you're not fighting in battlefield. You're not fighting on the local circuit. You're not doing this. You are Gudarshan Mangat, St. Lion, who is the flyweight one championship champ. That's who you are. Who represents India, who represents its people, who represents everybody. You are, and that's what you are. That's what you're gonna live. That's how you're gonna walk. That's how you're gonna speak to people. That's how you're gonna be. That's it.
Awesome, man.
And he's like, and then like, I'll make little mistakes, and he'll call me out on whether I put up a picture on Instagram and my wording is a way that I'm looking back. He'll be like, change it right now.
Yeah.
He'll probably watch this.
Crazy.
And
I don't like the way that you spoke.
yeah. Like,
the guy in the hat really pisses me off.
But he'll see a tweet of mine. He's like, no, we have to be only looking forward. Take that shit down. You can't be doing that.
That's awesome, man. No,
and he's always holding me accountable for it.
Top-notch sports psychologist.
And he's always holding me accountable for it. He's like, you have to look forward.
Yeah.
And you have to think that way. We're looking at the future. You've already got the belt. How we get there is what we're going to do. But you have to walk like a Rolls Royce. When you sit in the back of one, you know that you're in class and you have to carry yourself with class. And that's where you're going to be.
Speaking of looking forward, we all grew up. We've seen great fighters and we've seen the demise of great fighters. We saw Ali fight Larry Holmes, and then later, like, he was just on his way down. And there's like, you've had your own post-concussion symptoms and so forth. You even had a sports psychologist say to you, hey, do you want to end up like Ali? And your answer was, oh, you mean a legend?
Yeah. It wasn't a sports psychologist. It was actually a psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist. Okay, okay.
Yeah, it was a sports psychologist would have told me to tell her to go screw herself. No, it was a psychiatrist in Montreal. So I had post-concussion syndrome in Montreal. It's the way the game used to be before. It used to be when you train hard, when you go to sparring, you try to hit each other as hard as you can. You try to knock each other out, and that's what getting ready for a fight was. At that time, like, I'm talking like before 2012, before Concussion by Will Smith kind of came out, and then we started seeing the Chris Benoit,
exactly, and then
these
multiple
NFL players
NFL
going
players.
getting multiple NFL players, and I think that wave of UFC fighters is coming up because MMA is still so new. They haven't gone to that age yet.
Yeah, they don't have the length.
So we're not. So we're looking at all the guys that kind of started. Now we're gonna have to monitor them. And I know some guys that can't even remember their names some days.
Wow.
And
so how does that dwell on you?
Yeah,
and your family and your wife.
It definitely messes because I'm gonna be honest. My wife sees it. I see it. There's definitely like the guy that I was when she met. Like how I kind of come back with stuff. Like how I remember things. It's not the same.
No,
it's still not the same. And it is one of the scariest parts of it. One of the scariest things for me, I think one of the greatest things that can kill me is possibly like Alzheimer's or something, right? Because a lot of fighters can get hit with that. And it's one of the things that worries me the most. Forget about any kind of tear or anything. That's probably the scariest thing for me is that part. But training is much smarter now, right? When you go in, guys, you get hit hard some days, but training smarter. Guys know how to show up to fights healthier than putting on the big gloves and when you just go to each other. But I wish I had known the first 8 years of my career, because those 8 years of damage I'll never get back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So in Montreal, that's what happened. And I remember standing at like the metro, and the metro would like lightly turn sideways. I'd be standing there, and it would just start vibrating, and the room would turn sideways. I'm like, holy shit.
When I was listening to you tell that story, I put myself in your shoes, and I'm like, imagine that happened to me. I go home. I'm not going back. I'm not going to the cage, man. I'm gonna go get a different job.
And that was the toughest, probably two and a half years of my career. That's when the depression really set in.
Yeah.
That's when the depression came in like tenfold.
Yeah.
Like whatever I went through when my cousin passed away was nothing compared to what hit me then.
Yeah.
It was just, and I just met at that time, who's my wife now. Like at that time, I just met her, and she definitely didn't need to stick around for what the hell I was putting her through and what I was going through, and just being around me. I wouldn't want to be around me. And there's plenty of times I was at a point where I'm like, I don't want to be around me anymore. Yeah. And there was some scary, scary days, scary months. And my fight career, they were saying, was done. They're like, if you take one more punch, it could possibly kill you. And
so what changed? Like, you're able to take punches now?
I took a year off. I came here. I came back to Vancouver. I left Montreal, and I started just working. And then I went and met a VPD officer. And this VPD officer had spoken to me a few times. He's like, hey, listen, man, if you ever want to become a cop, we need guys like you, guys that know how to, like, that know martial arts, that know how to control themselves and know how to do their thing. And I was at that point, I'm like, hey, I got to get a proper job now. I'm basically finished with it. I want to get married one day at that point. Yeah. And so I went there, and then he sat me down. He's like, before you take this step, are you going to be 50 and you're going to be watching TV and you're going to see some top Indian fighter, and you're going to be like, are you going to be one of those guys that sits at the bar and tells everybody, like, I was that guy. I remember I've had this, I did this and this. Or are you going to go and be that guy? And that was it for me. So I took another 6-7 months off. I started doing intensive treatment, which was stuff like hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I started doing a lot of that kind of stuff. I started being more careful with training. Even there was a point where I wasn't even, like, I didn't even think about it. I'm like, okay, instead of doing MMA, I'll run on a treadmill. I'll run. Yeah. But running was causing it too. Anything that would take my heart rate past a certain beat.
That's what. I worked with the patient. When his heart rate would get up, he's like, I feel like I'm on a boat. Yeah. He's like, I'm feeling this. I get a headache coming.
You get a headache.
And so you gotta stop right away.
So I wasn't allowed to take my heart rate up for almost a year. So I would start running on. I'm like, dude, I used to be able to fight round after round, and they're not even letting me run on a treadmill at like 3 speed. They're like, every time you jump, your brain's vibrating, and you don't realize it. But when you're running, you are causing damage. Like, as crazy as it sounds. And so I had to stop everything. And then financially went downhill, lost everything at that point. And then so I'm even more of a rut. I started becoming just a negative ass person, just hating the world, this and this and this. Started being a really shitty person to be around. And then from there, I just had to pick myself up. It took one fight. Picked myself up. I'm like, dude, I'm not going out like this. Like, I'm not, like, this is not how I'm going out. Started with one fight and just started building myself back up. But the depression never left me. Right. The trauma never left me. And so I just started kind of dealing with it. And that's when meditation came in. That's when I started learning to, like, focus in. Like people are like, oh, you got over your depression. No, I still deal with it. I still have my days. I still have my days, my weeks, my months. I still have them. I just have this strength I've built in my mind that don't want to be a statistic of going the opposite. I want to show that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And basically, exactly what that psychiatrist said. She's like, do you want to end up like Ali? Like, like a lot of fighters can end up like that. I'm like, a legend. So she realized she wasn't like, I was going to see my life the way I was going to see it. I'm like, if my life is short, I want to live a life well lived. Not sit around just to like live till 90 and not have done anything with my life, right? So I'm like,
I'm about that life.
And so they realized that, like, they're not going to be able to stop me. They can only guide me. And look, now we're back. And that was when I was still fighting on the local circuit.
Oh, shit. Before you made pro.
I've had 17 fights since that time.
Crazy. And how are the symptoms since then?
You still have your moments, like, but they're not anything like they were that year.
Okay.
That 2 years, it's not like that because I'm much more well aware of my mind. Because when that came back, I didn't know how to control it. I didn't know what to do. I just got stuck in this bubble, this void, got stuck in this shit, and I didn't know how to pull myself out.
Have a better toolbox now.
Yeah, now I was just like very my outbursts were crazy. I was just like I was very on edge all the time and stuff. And those things still happen here and there, but I recognize them. I recognize them, and I like try to work through them before they get too bad. I walk away from situations, like, you know, like I just kind of manage them, and I train a lot smarter.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, it's not the damage you get in fights; it's the damage you get in training. People don't realize.
Yeah.
Your hardest, your worst injuries are gonna come in training, never in the fight.
Yeah.
Because when you watch the fight, you're like, damn, that fight was brutal. I guarantee you, there was much more brutal rounds in training camp. And it's because people don't see it. And it's one of the crazy things about the sport. You can only get better by doing these situations in private. Yeah, it's not like the first fight I don't get into is not on fight day. They've happened round after round, day after day, in and day out. You drop, you've got headaches. You can't even look. You can't even drive home some days. And you got to pick yourself up and you do it again. You take some CBD, you try to heal it up.
Your dad ever call you with what batera ho gaya?
No, my dad. No, that was him at the starting. Now he's the biggest one. He's like, in not getting back time, like, I'm like, oh.
He's becoming a little Don King himself.
Yeah, he's like the man in Williams Lake now. I'm like, and I'm just like, dude, remember when you were like, I'm gonna have to roll my whole life away because I took down but that's a parent, right? I totally understand that too. Like I had this scholarship ride to become an accountant from Williams Lake. Like life would have been set. But here I called them one day, like, yeah, I'm just gonna drop all that. I'm becoming a mixed martial artist. I know I've never been in a fight. I know I'm not known as an athlete whatsoever. But I think I can do this. Like, you know, like it's like, what are you doing? Like I think gotta lay out Vancouver now. Like what have you become since we went back to Williams Lake? So I understand that now, but everything I said I would do to them at that time, I've done to this point. I'm like, Dad, I will become one of the biggest names in Indian MMA. I will break the sport. Because I was doing this when it wasn't mainstream. Like I was on the scene before almost a lot of people.
You were doing it when it was illegal to fight.
When it was illegal to fight here. That's what I was having to jump the border and like go fight there. Like I wasn't, like gyms weren't even allowed to be here. They had to be like hidden out in places like Port Hills and stuff, like in these warehouses and stuff. And we used to have to drive like an hour or so, like go find these gyms, and we'll have to have a special passcode to get past the gate and go train and stuff. Now they're like on every corner, right? Now it's like people, like parents want to put their kids in MMA. Right. That time they attributed to gang related stuff the gang gun that job. I'm like, dude, I've never been in a gang. I've never been in a street fight. This is just something I want to do. And that was one of the hardest things when I was trying to get support, like sponsors and stuff at the starting. I like a lot of businesses. I knew how wealthy they were, but they were like, why would we support you? So they give it to the wrestling clubs. And I was always having to hold like 4 or 5 jobs at a time, whether I was bouncing, whether I was doing door-to-door sales, even I was working on commissions. I was doing, I worked at La Senza. I worked at, dude, I worked.
My guy.
Why are you complaining about that?
Dream job.
Come on.
Like even like in Montreal, when everything fell apart, I had one guy I was training 3 days a week, so I was living off about $80 a week, food and everything, and that's just how I had to live out there. And
just how much longer are you gonna go at this, man?
I don't know, man. I'm going for stem cells next week.
Right. So we got a good 15 years.
Exactly.
Help me fall, Joey.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that that resets my biological clock a little bit, and then I think that's gonna be. It's going to be the only thing stopping me from my run to the belt is once I get that done, it's going to be, I've been lucky in the sense that I've never had major surgery except for my nose. I got bent completely sideways in one of my fights, but there's always like these crazy injuries that add up. Like your body is hurting all day, every day. People used to warn me about this when I was 22. And I'm like, it's never gonna happen to me. Now I get it. Now I get it.
No.
But that's the price you pay for living your dream, right? And so I wouldn't change it for anything.
Seems like you're not going nowhere, bro.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like I'm quitting anytime soon. As soon as after every single fight, I always say I'm done. I always say to my wife, I'm always like, this is gonna be the last one. And then you get that high, and you're not gonna get that through any drug, anything you do. You're never gonna get that high of a victory. The victory high is what always drags you back. And then if you lose, you're chasing that high again because you're like, I need to get it back. I need to feel that again. So it's like that's what happens to fighters. They're always chasing that because I think it doesn't matter whatever drug of choice they do or something, they'll never feel what it feels like to get your hand raised. It's just a different feeling. It's a different completion in yourself, and then you get to sit back, and then you come back home and you see all these other people that are enjoying it, like, you know, my parents, my dad, like, you know, my mom and dad, they're celebrating. Then I'm getting messages from people all over India. Like, it's so, like, my dream used to always be like, I want to have fights big enough where I want people to have to alter their schedule to watch my fight.
Sick.
Like, you know, when you have like a counter fight, right? You're like, that Saturday's a write-off.
Yeah.
Like, today I'm getting the boys together. We're
Yeah.
gonna order this. We're gonna do this. I want to have that. Like, you know, I'm like, I want people to be like, hey, boss, I need to get off at 5 because I gotta get home for St. Lions fight.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people will send me pictures and they're in like the Mumbai like train. And they're like, dude, we're watching your fight right now. And they send pictures and they're like, just a train packed full of people, and they're on their phone and they're watching it.
That's
on their way
crazy.
home, I'm just like, this is nuts.
It's crazy because you didn't say I want that $5 million purse. I want, you know, like XYZ. This guy wants you to watch his fights.
That's what it is.
True fighter, man.
That's fucking
Yeah,
wild.
because it's like, I want to give moments of myself. Like I said this when I first started, I want to live pieces of my heart everywhere till there's really nothing left. Right? I just want to like and let it grow into something else.
Right.
And see what it grows into. I think that's immortality to me. Like, you know, guys like Kobe and Ali who are such big inspirations for me. That's what they are to me.
Yeah.
They left seeds of knowledge and moments of success that push me. So like every morning I would listen to Kobe's voice. First thing I listen to sometimes is his voice. He got me through the entire camp. Last camp and the camp before that, the camps before that, and Ali, like, you know, just seeing everything he had to say. So these people they're immortal to me. They forever will be, and I want to be able to leave little, like, you know, say this podcast, like somebody listens to this 40 years down the road and they hear what I had to say and they're like, okay, like I'm in that situation right now. So you try to leave little pieces of yourself wherever you can, and I think that's more powerful than really anything monetary in any way.
So
I think that's
that's where it got.
Yeah, that's a great close right there, man.
Yeah.
Let us into it.
But no, man, we really appreciate. We always say that, you know, time is the highest form of currency, and when we get the gift of time, it's the most beautiful thing. So
thank you for sharing time with us,
guys,
man.
man. Thank you guys, man. I appreciate
Awesome,
it.
man. Peace out,
Pleasure,
man.
pleasure, boss.